pull a Kirk and talk it to death. Which I think is a great way to start the energy of our episode. Greg, are we started? We don't. I mean, we don't have to. We could.
Well, I was gonna. Well, no, I was just gonna say,
take the
surprise,
energy way
bitches.
down.
surprise, bitches. Like, it's me. It's not Kay. If you're expecting Kay,
Harsh energy to come in with.
Kay is enjoying some much. Kay's enjoying some time off. Kay's having his own little vacation time.
Yeah.
So you get me. Condolences and or congratulations.
None of that. We're very, very glad. See, normally we can only punch through the temporal vortex when our lemon-stealing whores pay for the anti-graviton emitter to turn on.
Wait. So
expensive.
it's no. I'll tell you what this is. This is a free trial for Greg. This is a free trial for Chief Engineer Greg.
This
Everyone
is
else
a
gets like
sampler.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so the Patreon is now a Chief Greg subscription service. So you get like
I'm behind the paywall.
Okay, so anyway, welcome to The Joy of Trek, ostensibly a Star Trek podcast with your hosts Kaki and
Chief Engineer Greg.
Yay!
Who Cocky. I wish I could remember the dream better, but last night I was so excited for this. That I dreamed up like a fan fiction story, basically.
Whoa.
But here's the problem. So much of it was entirely dependent on like Cole Meany being completely uninterested in how little they gave him to do in TNG.
Oh,
That,
wow.
like, it was his deadpan and also like early TNG terrible effects.
They sure did try, didn't they?
Like, because there's a thing where like, oh, he got like thrown over like a balcony by like young hot Christopher Lee for some godforsaken reason. I don't know my brain.
What? No, your brain rules.
But the scream that he made, what was just like, and it was just that energy the entire time, and you can't exactly capture that in a story setting. You can't capture.
I mean, I guess we can try.
You can't capture Cole Meany just not giving.
I was thinking about the early Matt Stone and Trey Parker film Orgasmo, where a young uptight Mormon becomes embroiled in the porn industry and becomes an actor therein, and he's performing with a young woman in this scene where he's portraying the titular sexual superhero Orgasmo, and
Naturally.
she's bound up and she has to yell for his help, and she goes Orgasmo, and he yells cut because he's very uncomfortable. He's about to be accosted by two young Japanese women called the Ass Twins, and he asks, "Couldn't we call them the Naughty Twins?" Yeah. Bro, they get f***ed in the ass. That's like their whole thing. They're the ass. No, that's pretty naughty. No, just read the lines. Okay, and then they do the scene again. And this time the young woman, like all of her acting acumen was gone in the first take. And now her response is, Orgasmo. And that, but with Cole Meany, I'm into.
Well, if you want to speak about just like orgasmic sexual tension, Cocky. So let's get into our story because we are reading I Just Might Say It Tonight by Orcamermaid.
Ooh.
The summary of which is 5 times Garak and Julian didn't voice their feelings, and 1 time they finally did.
Ooh. Ooh, it's one of those 5 times ones. We encountered these in Farscape when we did story reading. So I think that this is a fan fiction, like, not a trope. What's it called? A format.
Yeah.
That there are these 5 excerpts, 5 vignettes, I should say. And I'm very excited. So this is Garak and Julian. Let me see. Are there any spoiler warnings? Well, Yeah, you better have seen Deep Space Nine. I imagine.
Yeah, what in the tags it says what you leave behind. So yes, it is. It is spoiler for the entirety of DS9.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, the show notes are a bit of a spoiler for the story, so I'm going to scrub right on back. Oh, this is exciting because, hey, is there a pairing on let's say Deep Space Nine that you're more into than
Odo and Kira.
Really?
Easy.
Yeah,
Easy,
okay.
Easy. No, so
I would have guessed
because
Worf and Jadzia.
and like I love them
Yeah.
too, but here's the thing: is I remember watching the series finale of DS9 and seeing
What You Leave
like
Behind, yeah.
their final interaction together, and Odo like going
Oh.
back to his home planet, and like you always loved me in the tuxedo, and just like and they were my first ship before I knew what shipping was. They were
wow.
like they are my original OTP. They're my original, like, I adore them together.
One true
and
pairing, I believe that stands for.
yes,
I'm
yes,
hip.
yes, it
I'm
does.
with it. I'm a relevant older man.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have see here's the thing. I don't think I've used the phrase OTP in at least 10 years. So like I don't think I've used it since I deleted my Tumblr.
Password protected or otherwise, we'll never know. Oh, well, I appreciate then that you picked a Garashir story, which, we appreciate.
Well, okay, because originally it was going to be the two of you reading it, and then it was like, oh, I get to read it, which means, oh, I get to try and mimic Garrick's way of speaking, which is very particular.
Oh, look, he's already trying it.
Well, no, I was thinking about it and kind of like practicing it in my head a little bit. So we'll see.
Oh, okay.
We'll see if it's any good or not. It may be terrible.
Hey, okay, so I have a little bit of experience in this, and I may impart on you some wisdom. One of the ways to summon a particular voice is to make the face. Right?
Be right back. I'm going to be in makeup for the next like 5 hours.
No, not like that. The positioning
wait,
of your jaw.
I'll go get a spoon and just like put on my forehead.
Ian McKellen did that in an interview where, can you hey, please, can you say this line? Do you want me to say this line, or do you want Gandalf to say this line? Oh, Gandalf, please. And like his face just transformed because it's a tighter set of the jaw and a furrowing of the brow.
I was thinking like it was a lot more of jawness to Ian McKellen. It was as Gandalf, actually. Yeah.
So if you want to do a Garak, do a smarm. How much smarm can you put in your?
But I'm also just thinking about the very like tight-lipped smile that he does, and the way that he kind of leans into and puts special emphasis on his words.
It's musical, isn't it? It's lyrical.
Yes. Although I just thought about that same actor whose name is Andrew Robinson.
Yes.
I see. Here's the problem: is I just thought about him in Hellraiser, which is very different energy, and I regret doing that now.
Whoa. Okay, maybe we should just start with this story.
Yes,
I might say it tonight
to.
by Orca Mermaid. Thank you so much. Which can be found on Archive of Our Own. /work/304-25253.
The link is in the description of the show. The link is in the show notes.
No, but this is like a star date.
Yeah, but URLs
Captain's
are more
log.
annoying.
304-25253. We should do this. Actually, Greg, you don't really have much of a say in this because I can just do. Or I will probably have forgotten. That's also very likely.
See, either you've forgotten, or like I could just power move and just edit them all out. So you can just keep doing them, and I'll just edit them out.
See, this is you have too much power sometimes, but I trust you and I love you, Greg. Can we read the story?
1. As you may know, the Cardassian says, I have a clothing shop nearby, so if you should require any apparel or simply wish, as I do, for a bit of enjoyable company now and then, I am at your disposal, Doctor. His smile is like a knife.
you know exactly which scene this is, right? This is
Yes.
their first meeting,
Yes.
where Garak is so obviously young Julian Bashir and walking, and you see him like holding him by the shoulders and looking around
I
at
was
the rest
thinking
of the
about that.
room.
Yes.
So, and you're just leaving these young officers around just for people to pick. These are free, like the ducks in the park. You can just take them.
And Julian is deciding in that moment, am I into this or not? And he kind of is.
Yeah, no, he's what are all these feelings? Okay. Oh, Julian gets it. Truer words have never been spoken. I'm sorry, Orca Mermaid. Oh, Julian gets it. He understands perfectly why this man is an effective spy, how he insinuates himself into situations where he doesn't belong, because in this moment, Julian wants nothing so much as to lean in and breathlessly ask what he means by enjoyable company. He wants to let himself be seduced, wants Garak to take him back to his quarters, wants that sharp, unflinching gaze all over him, wants to know what those scaled hands would feel like on his skin.
He takes a deep, shaky breath. He is not going to be an easy mark.
Oh.
He pictures Major Kyr's reaction if he were to let a Cardassian spy into his bed, and the thought is sufficiently sobering to quell the hazy desire spreading through his body.
You're very kind, Mr. Garak, he says, endeavoring to sound more composed than he feels.
Oh, it's just Garak. Plain, simple.
Garak, Julian finishes for him. He smiles awkwardly.
Now, good day to you, Doctor, Garak says, rising from his seat. I'm so glad to have made such an interesting new friend today. He puts his hands on Julian's shoulders, and Julian jumps. He's grateful that Garak is standing behind him, because he's sure that his face must be beet red. Garak's hands are colder than a human's would be. Julian finds a sensation not wholly unpleasant. Once Garak has let go of him and walked away, he hurries to Ops to inform the rest of the crew of this peculiar encounter. All in the interest of station security, of course.
Right, and not at all to hide his pesky little boner before anyone sees and bullies him about it. Gonna have to make some sort of indication when I editorialize, because I don't want Orca Mermaid to take the flak for this. Although, I don't know, maybe they're into it. And if, when he touches himself that night in his quarters, okay, no, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're not editorializing there.
No, his thoughts drift stubbornly to gray scales and piercing blue eyes. Well, that's his business. Ooh, Greg, this is a good choice. Number two, your turn.
The period immediately after Garak's implant is removed is a bit of a blur. He can remember the events, but they feel distant and fuzzy, like they happened to someone else. The days are a haze of pain. He'd forgotten how bad it was, back before he began using the implant. His eyes always burning, his fingers always numb. In combination with the endorphin withdrawal, it's nigh unbearable. He imagines his father would laugh at that. Elam Garak, seasoned operative of the Obsidian Order, protege of Anarburn Tain, trained to withstand all manner of torture, laid low by bright lights and his own brain chemistry. What a joke.
There is, however, the Doctor. It's almost alarming how soothed he is by Bashir's presence. True, the man is beautiful, and a lovely conversationalist besides, but that's supposed to be it. He's not supposed to get attached. And yet, cutting through his stupor, these remain the brightest snapshots. Bashir taking his hand, Bashir's fingers against the skin of his face as he examines him, brow furrowed in concern. Bashir never leaving his bedside. Bashir fussing over him, looking after him like his pain matters.
There's so much he wants to say afterwards. Not about his past. He wasn't lying when he told Bashir he'd given him all the answers he was capable of. But about this feeling growing unbidden in his chest, like a weed pushing up through a crack in paved ground. He thinks about telling him that it was his first time in a long time. His first time. The first time, not his first time.
Well, no. Garak
long
too gets it.
He thinks about telling him that it was the first time in his long history of nearly dying that he thought about someone he might care about if he survived. He thinks about apologizing for things he said during the withdrawal. He thinks about telling him what makes his exile bearable. He thinks about telling him that horrifyingly, inconveniently, against his will, he appears to have fallen in love with him. He doesn't tell Bashir any of those things in the end, but he thinks about it.
Oh, next one, number 3. Do you remember the name of the episode where that happened?
No, I know which one it is.
Yeah, he's very his claustrophobia comes back because he has.
I think it would be, looking at the tags, would be season 2, 22, The Wire.
Oh yeah. That's totally what it is.
Thank you, tags.
Hey, thank you, Orca Mermaid, for these tags. Number 3. Julian is on his way out the door, headed for the runabout pad to wish Garak goodbye, when he spots the box of Delavian chocolates sitting on the table. He hesitates, staring at it. If something happens to Garak, if he doesn't make it back, and this is the last thing Julian will have to remember him by, he swallows. Suddenly, the box looks more terrifying than appetizing. He thinks about Garak, stuck in that runabout with Odo, who will argue with him not because he enjoys it, but because he's actually angry with him.
He picks up the box. The look Garak gives him when he hands over the chocolate makes his heart flutter. The undisguised wonder with which he stares at Julian, like it's inconceivable that anyone would do something kind for him.
I thought you might need them more than I do, Julian says with a smile. Garak inclines his head gratefully.
Thank you, he says.
Oh, that was very good. Julian thinks suddenly that he should tell him. Garak may not make it back. This may be his last chance. If he's going to his death, he deserves to know that someone loves him. Then again, perhaps that's a selfish thought. Perhaps Julian simply wants closure for himself. Whatever Garak's reaction to such a revelation might be, it would surely cloud his mind, which is the last thing he needs before such a dangerous mission. All things considered, it might be better to wait. Let Garak focus on the task at hand.
Good luck, Julian says. It feels entirely inadequate. Afterwards, as he waits anxiously for Garak to return, he knows he made the wrong decision.
Oh. Number 4. They don't have much of a chance to talk when they get back from the camp. There's far too much happening on the station, and perhaps it's for the best. Garak has too many conflicting emotions to sort through to even begin attempting to articulate them. He's grateful to Julian for helping him through his humiliating claustrophobia. He's touched by the discretion he's shown regarding Tane. He's heartbroken at having found out that Julian spent so long alone in that horrible place. And above all, like a knife in his heart, he is deeply, profoundly ashamed of not having noticed he was gone.
He scours his memory over and over for anything he might have missed. Certainly, the changeling's actions in the runabout were suspicious. The real Julian may have intercepted his surreptitious attempt to leave the station, but Garak doubts he would have done it at gunpoint. But that was too little, too late. The fact remains that he had lunch with this imposter many times without realizing that it wasn't Julian. It was an impressive reproduction, he'll give it that. It argued very convincingly with him about Cardassian literature. It smiled the way Julian does, unguarded and infectious. It said his name in the same way, with that slight, endearing overemphasis on the final plosive. Still, surely there was something. Some clue he missed, some imperfection he overlooked. He needs to find it, so that he can point it out to Julian and prove to him that he knows him too well to be so easily duped by a facsimile. He needs Julian to know that he's not replaceable.
The fact that Julian's other friends were equally unobservant is no comfort. They may know him, may even love him, but they are not members of the Obsidian Order. They can be forgiven for any lapses in attention. Garak, on the other hand, Garak is a spy, a man trained practically from birth in the art of careful observation, and he has spent the last month sharing meals with a changeling without ever once noticing it wasn't Julian Bashir. The shame threatens to consume him.
Garak knows with awful, unshakable certainty that he has lost the right to claim to love Julian. How could he when he can't even tell the man apart from a cheap replacement? There was a time to let Julian know how he felt, and it was before he allowed him to spend 4 weeks wasting away in a prison camp out of sheer ignorance. No, he knows now that he must swallow this feeling. He must keep it locked away in his chest, where it will only hurt him and not Julian. He can handle its jagged edges. He can let it sink its venomous teeth into his heart. He has kept worse secrets. This one will not destroy him.
Whoa, the prose in this story.
This is really good.
Yeah,
This is really good.
Good choice. And thank you, Orca Mermaid. Number 5. And then we get to the one we've been looking forward to. You've been such a good friend, Garak tells him. I'm going to miss our lunches together.
Julian's heart clenches. This can't be it. It can't be.
I'm sure we'll see each other again, he says, attempting a smile.
I'd like to think so, Garak says. He looks perfectly composed. He always was a better liar than Julian. But one can never say. We live in uncertain times.
Julian can feel the moment slipping away from him. The realization sends cold panic rushing through his body. They're going to have this stilted, inadequate conversation, saying none of the things that matter, and Garak is going to walk out of that door, and Julian will never see him again. Before he can gather his thoughts and try to think of something to say that would salvage the situation, Garak turns away. Julian wants to cry. What good is his genetically enhanced intellect if he can't even find the words to tell the man he loves how he feels about him? Couldn't those bastards on Adigian Prime have thrown in some emotional intelligence while they were at it? He can calculate dizzyingly complex statistics in his head, but he can't have an honest conversation with Garak. Absolutely pathetic.
Julian doesn't turn around. He lets Garak leave, hating himself more with every step.
+1. This is the one.
You're so excited.
I am. I'm curious about where it's going to take place in the series. Whew. Garak is reading the last of the Earth novels Julian gave him, a sentimental and altogether foolish attempt to cling to what he has lost. When there's a knock on the door, he frowns at his pad. It's been less than 2 weeks since the end of the war. Cardassia Prime is still in chaos. He's had a few visitors, and none unannounced. There is too much to do in this ruined city for anyone to bother stopping by to see an exiled spy, formerly exiled, he reminds himself, living in a garden shed. Truthfully, with Mila gone, there is no one left on the planet he could call a friend. He tries not to dwell on it.
Garak sets the pad aside and gets up from his chair, straightening out his clothes before approaching the door. He retrieves a disruptor from the table, just in case his visitor is an old enemy, or an old colleague, for that matter. The difference is nominal. That's good.
Yes.
He holds it out of sight as he opens the door.
Oh, have you read A Stitch in Time, his book about Garak?
I have not, no.
It's very good, and you'll enjoy.
I think I need to.
And the audiobook is recorded by Andrew Robinson.
I was gonna say I made it the audiobook just so I can hear more of Andrew Robinson.
No. Okay. The polite smile he's affixed to his face falls away the moment the door swings open. Standing outside, outlined in gold by the afternoon sunlight, is Julian Bashir. He's out of uniform, which is a shock in and of itself. He's wearing a purple tank top and an absolutely hideous pair of patterned trousers. Garak wonders distantly if he picked the outfit specifically to offend his sensibilities. Equally puzzling is the duffel bag slung over one Wait, I think that's the outfit he wore on Risa when he...
I think so. I think it may be that...
When he was banging... what was her...
Rom's wife, Lita.
Well, he wasn't banging Rom's wife. They were having sex to celebrate the end of their relationship, and then she went on...
I couldn't remember her name at first, so I said Rom's wife before I remembered her name.
So this is his Ferengi cuckolding outfit. Equally puzzling is the duffel bag slung over one shoulder, and the hefty case of what must be medical equipment sitting beside him, and the determined set of his jaw.
Look, Garak, Julian says, before Garak can pull himself together enough to offer a greeting. He pauses for a moment, then amends. Elam, if you're satisfied with that we may never see again crap, tell me so, and I'll leave. But I'm not. I don't want to spend the rest of my life hearing from you every few months, or years over subspace. Quite frankly, I don't think you want that either. So stop with this lonely martyr nonsense and let me stay.
Yes.
I want to stay here with you on Cardassia.
Oh.
I'll make myself useful. I'll help with rebuilding. I'm sure you could use an extra doctor. If you think about it, it would honestly be selfish to deny your people medical aid just because you're hopelessly dedicated to suffering. So it's really your duty as a loyal Cardassian to let me move in with you.
Oh, Julian, get it! Garak gets the distinct impression that Julian has been rehearsing his little speech on the journey over. He faces Garak down like he's going into battle, daring him to turn him away. A ridiculous notion. He must know, that Garak could never do such a thing. He must know that this is every greedy, selfish daydream Garak has ever had. It's charming beyond belief that he thinks he needs to bring duty to Cardassia into the equation, as though the miracle of his presence isn't enough by itself. Garak stares at the doctor for a few moments, before managing to collect himself.
My dear Julian, he says, if that's truly what you want, how could I deny you? I mean, maybe he's into it.
Turnabout's fair play. He did it to Rom, and now,
Runabout's fair play.
That has to be the title of a story on Archive of It has. There are 40,000 fanfics at least, if I'm not off by an order of magnitude.
Where are my sticky notes to write this, to look this up later?
Runabout is fair play. Okay. A grin splits Julian's face. More radiant by far than the Cardassian sunlight Garak has missed so sorely. He drops his bag on the ground with a heavy thunk and takes several steps forward, crowding into Garak's space.
If you have no objections, Mr. Garak, he murmurs, I am going to kiss you now.
Oh, Garak could not think of an objection if his life depended on it. He just about has the presence of mind to set the disruptor aside before he places his hands on Julian's waist and draws him closer, half convinced he's dreaming. Julian wraps his arms around Garak's neck. He's still smiling when their lips meet.
He kisses him like he's been waiting for this as long as Garak has. Julian is sun-warm against him, pressing their bodies together. There's a desperation to the way he's touching him, and Garak wants to soothe him, to reassure him that he'll happily spend the rest of his life kissing Julian, if that's what he wants.
Oh, I imagine, one of them purring, and I don't know which one. He has no idea how much time passes before Julian pulls back. Flushed and happy, Garak rests their foreheads together and breathes in the strange human scent of him, rich and earthy and so different from his own.
You always did have a flair for the dramatic, my dear, he says quietly, smiling.
Julian makes an offended noise and pulls back a bit, though he makes no effort to remove his arms from around Garak's neck. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's rich coming from you, he says. No, Julian, there's no telling if we'll see each other again. I certainly couldn't invite you to visit me every once in a while. Now leave me here to live out the rest of my miserable life alone, please. Give me a break.
For the listeners at home, Greg was putting his hand to his forehead in a woe is me gesture, which Julian absolutely was doing.
You could hear that.
Yes. Garak laughs and kisses him again.
A failure of imagination, he allows. I certainly couldn't have pictured anything half so lovely as this. You never fail to surprise me, Julian.
Julian bites his lip, smiling, and brushes their noses together.
I like that, he says quietly, hearing you use my first name. Though I hope you'll keep calling me my dear doctor, too. I'm rather fond of it.
Garak presses a kiss to Julian's cheekbone, lingering just a bit.
I'll call you whatever you like, my love, he murmurs. Will you come inside?
Da 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 da! Ba, ba, da, ba, da, da, da. And what? Finally, does Julian top or bottom? We've never known until right now. Orca Mermaid solved it. Wow, I'm so sorry. I just got excited. Julian releases him and steps back to pick up his things. He grins at Garak.
Of course. I do live here.
Oh, nice move. The shed is small, and there's some awkward shuffling as Julian maneuvers his luggage inside and out of the way. He doesn't raise an eyebrow at the disruptor on the table, but he does lean over to peer at the discarded pad, shooting Garak a pleased smile when he recognizes Wild Sargasso Sea.
There's only one chair, Garak says apologetically.
And it faces the bed.
We can go out and look for another tomorrow. I know there isn't much space, and I only have a small bed. He trails off, feeling suddenly ashamed at having Julian see him in the state. Living in a space that was never meant as a residence. Sleeping on a rickety cot, eating like a beggar. It must show on his face, because Julian steps closer and puts a hand on his cheek, trailing his fingers over the ridge around Garak's eye. His gaze is soft.
Elim, he says, come on. It's me. I've seen you go through withdrawal. I've seen you in a cell in the brig. I've seen you have a panic attack in a Dominion prison camp. He shakes his head. I would have come here even if you had nowhere to live at all. I'm here for you.
Garak finds himself momentarily at a loss for words. He doesn't know what to do with this sort of unconditional devotion. He's always had to fight for everything. Now here Julian is, handing him his loftiest dream with no strings attached. For lack of an adequate verbal response, he pulls Julian into a kiss, chest aching.
Once Garak has calmed down enough to brew them both some red leaf tea, they end up sitting on the edge of the bed, close enough that their sides are pressed together. Garak sips his tea and watches Julian. Now that the danger of rejection has passed, the doctor looks perfectly at home. One would never know to look at him that he'd just left his entire life behind to go live in a shattered mess of a city with an equally shattered mess of a man. With a sigh, Garak steels himself for the question he's been trying to avoid asking.
My dear, he says cautiously, not that I'm not glad you're here, you understand, but I must ask, Ezri?
Julian looks embarrassed. Not the reaction Garak was expecting.
Would you believe she broke up with me? Before Garak can say anything, he holds up his hand and shakes his head, smiling faintly. No, Garak, I'm not here because Ezri broke my heart. He sighs. She sat me down a few days after I came back to the station. She said she didn't think she was what I wanted. She, may have offered some insight into my feelings about women.
Garak tilts his head in puzzlement.
Your feelings about women?
Or lack thereof, as it were. Julian takes a sip of his tea. We had a lengthy conversation about my need to, perform normative romantic behaviors. Her words. She suggested that there may be a reason my relationships with women tend not to last. And I think she was right. He takes a shaky breath. I think I'm gay. I don't think I'm attracted to women.
There's very little stigma attached to sexuality in Cardassian society, but Garak has spent enough time around humans, and enough time hearing about the Doctor's romantic exploits, to know that this declaration has weight to Julian. He takes his hand.
Well, fucking duh, he says. We all knew that. Fucking dogs knew that, Julian. No, that's not what it says here. That can't have been an easy conversation, he says. Julian gives him a small smile.
It wasn't, he says. It helped that she'd, come to a similar realization herself. Apparently, having all those memories in her head to compare with her own experiences made her realize that what she'd taken for attraction to men was not really attraction at all. I think she has her sights set on Kira now, actually. Don't get in the way of my OTP. No.
Hey,
He
she's
huffs in
single.
amusement. Anyway, never date a counselor. Far too much insight.
You hear that, Riker and Worf? Garak smiles slyly.
Don't worry, my dear, he says. I plan to stick to doctors from now on.
Oh, that's a
And
good
stick
line.
to doctors from now on. Hey!
Julian ducks his head, grinning. He shoves Garak lightly with his shoulder.
You're incorrigible.
Well, you shouldn't encourage me then. Dinner, when it comes around, is a meager affair. The shed has no kitchen, and of course, nothing as luxurious as a replicator. Garak has been doing his cooking using a single portable hot plate on the floor. He has repurposed one of the cabinets into a makeshift pantry, stocked with a small reserve of vegetables, roots, grains, a few spices, and a single precious tin of tea. Garak makes them each a modest serving of savory Karoo porridge, topped with sliced bilek root. They eat on the floor, with their backs against the edge of the cot, and once their bowls are empty, Julian surprises him yet again by pulling a bottle of Canar and a box of Delavian chocolates from his duffel bag. Given the circumstances, it feels almost illicit to be allowed these little luxuries, the greatest of which, of course, is Julian's company. He tells him so, and is rewarded with a brilliant smile and a very fetching blush.
Julian clearly has yet to develop a taste for Canar. He has a small glass, but grimaces with every sip. Garak smiles fondly at him over the rim of his own glass.
You know, my dear, he says, you could have brought a beverage you actually enjoy.
Julian huffs.
No, he says stubbornly, it's not for me. I thought you'd want something familiar, something comforting.
Garak reaches out to caress his cheek. Julian leans into the touch with a pleased hum.
Whatever did I do to deserve you, he murmurs. Julian smiles.
Well, you kept giving me discounts on alterations.
Yeah, yeah, we know where you did the alterations. We know where he measured him over and over and over again with those discounts. Woof! Garak laughs, surprised and delighted. He sets his glass down and leans in to kiss Julian, who smiles against his mouth and cradles the back of his head to pull him closer. He tastes syrup, sweet and tangy from the Canar. Garak wonders how long it will take him to get used to this, having Julian here, warm and open and in his arms. He hopes he never does. He hopes that in 10, 20 years, when he wakes up in a real house, on a rebuilt Cardassia with Julian Bashir sleeping beside him, it will still take his breath away. He suspects it will.
The bed can just about fit both of them, though it creaks in protest. Julian, unaccustomed to their Cardassian heat, has stripped down to his underwear, and Garak takes a moment to luxuriate in his beauty as they settle in. Julian stares at him as though he knows exactly what he's thinking.
What a charming tramp. That joke would have landed better if I could get through it. This is the moment that it is revealed that he has ass antlers tattooed. Tomorrow, he says, tracing one of Garak's neck ridges lightly with his finger. You can, well, I was about to say you can do whatever you like to me, but I do have some ideas of my own.
Garak wraps an arm around Julian's waist and kisses him, smiling.
I'm sure we can find some, compromise, my dear.
Julian chuckles and tangles their legs together. They kiss languidly, sweetly, trading soft sighs and gentle touches. Garak has had years to imagine what he might do to Julian if Julian had... Garak has had years to imagine what he might do if he had Julian in his bed, and in the morning, he certainly intends to take him up on that offer. But for now, he finds that he's quite content to simply bask in his presence. They have time.
Eventually, Julian pulls back just a little, watching his face in the dark. His fingers stroke idly through Garak's hair.
I love you, Julian says softly. You know that, right?
Garak smiles and kisses him.
I had gathered, he says. But even I must admit that it's good to say things out loud sometimes.
Yay! Yay! The end! Oh, amazing! Orca Mermaid, thank you so much. And the notes say, yes, Julian did do his grand love confession while wearing his Risa clothes. It's warm on Cardassia.
Well spotted, Cocky. Well spotted.
Thanks and apologies to Orca Mermaid.
Really do love this.
I do too. This is a great choice, Greg.
I'm very happy. I think you may be a little less than happy with my choice next week. or for
2 weeks. Yeah.
Yes,
when we
yes,
do the
I
next.
realize that. Yes. Because wow, Cocky, you know what I can actually do this time? You don't have to like chime in and hear like what the preview is for the next story, because I can tell you.
Yeah. Hey, Greg, what do we have in store next time on an all-new episode of Star Trek?
Oh, so I realized I should have looked up how to say something because I'm pretty sure that especially because I'm pretty sure this is an Irish word. Because Cocky, the next episode's gonna come out the week right around St. Patrick's Day, or very close to St. Patrick's Day.
A historically sober affair where devout Catholics spend the day in reflection and sometimes visiting family and go to bed early. Yes.
Saint Patrick, who is well known for not taking drunks lightly. The story that you will be reading is Faith and Begorra by Bruce PKSP, in which Tom Paris and Harry Kim try to repair the Fairhaven Hollow program in time for St. Patrick's Day.
What in the hell? Oh, I can't wait. Thank you so much. What do we do at the end of these? Do we fade out?
There's only one thing left to say.
That's right.
I'm leaving Starfleet.
Energize. I don't have the sound clips for it. I didn't put it in post.
I thought you just did those. I thought you did those with your mouth. I thought you just did a perfect impersonation. Okay.
Take it away, Editor Greg.
Love you. See you next time. Bye.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode with your friends Kay and Cocky. Production and editing by Chief Engineer Greg, and music by Fox Amore. Join us next week for Move Along Home, DS9 110, followed by Faith and Begorra by Bruce PKSP. Visit joyoftrek.com/links to send us your recommendations, support us on Patreon, or to find us on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening to Joy of Trek, and we'll see you out there.